So that's as much weeding as I had to do on this bed. All I'm really going to do is keep these creepers from creeping up onto the bed, and then I won't have to do any kind of weeding. If I had ducks, those creepers never would have been there. But the importance is with ducks is you have to have a bed that's tall enough that the ducks can't get their heads in. Okay, so when you build a bed that's meant to be kind of shepherded by ducks, you need to know that if you don't raise it up, what the ducks are going to do is they're going to stick their heads in the side and they're going to eat the roots of your plants. So this one, some of it's looking a little yellow. Again, I planted all this before I left, and then John has been keeping it watered. He hasn't been doing much trimming. What, honey?
Should we find a new angle because I can't see the garden? Do you want to start with that last part, the planting?
So I know this looks incredibly overgrown, but one of the main reasons that I grow a garden bed is to feed rabbits. And so generally when I have greens like this in here, what I'll do in order to make room for the newer plants is that I'll come in and I'll trim it all back and I'll feed it to the rabbits, and it feeds the rabbits well, and then it means that the smaller plants can come out and be beautiful. But all of this is going to Nikki's house, so I don't want to cut it all back and everything unless she was going to come and get the food for her rabbits, because I'm not willing to take this and put it into the garbage or anything, because this is really great organic food for rabbits or chickens or ducks. If you had chickens or ducks, you could just cut this and let it drop and they would eat it and they'd be super happy. So this basil did make it. None of the basil in the rest of the beds made it. This was the only one that was a hot bed, and that's what this is. So the inside of this bed is still warm even now, and it protected these so that when it got cold it still had that bottom heat. The other ones, what, honey?
Sorry. You did catch that part where these got bit, right?
Doesn't matter, they're still alive.
Right.
Nothing else survived.
Yeah, totally. But it was
Yeah, they got bit.
backing your testimony, because I watched it. The level came down to within 2 inches.
Yeah, and then it came back.
So it didn't freeze anything under that, and that was under blanket and everything else.
And you got tomatoes in here that survived.
Yep.
So in here we have tomatoes that survived. Do you want to come in and pan in and show it?
Sure.
These right here are tomatoes, which means that I really need to cut back this turnip green.
Yep.
Because these tomatoes would really, this one right here.
Yep.
These tomatoes would really like a chance to live. But the fact that they lived at all, because you had freezing temperatures and you had hail.
It dropped down into the low 20s.
Yeah, so we had low 20s while I was gone.
Right at 20, into the teens, and it so it froze all the way down to within 1.5 to 2 inches of that bed.
Yeah.
And got most of those warmer plants.
So the Keyhole Garden, I did not have it layered manure mulch. I did not have it layered, and so it didn't heat up the same way. There's a little tiny bit of heat off that one, but the inside, that keyhole part, the part that's empty on the inside so you can put compost in, that's empty, which means that it's not retaining heat. This one is 4 foot by 8 foot, and it has a lot of mass that's manure and carbon that is actually retaining and creating more heat. Even though I had already taken the sides down, on this side I left the cardboard up to just because I forgot to take it down. But previously what I'd had cardboard on both sides to keep the wind from blowing all the heat off. But this one, I still say that the hotbed is the ultimate gardening bed because it does everything. This time of year you can take the cover off and it's happy, but we planted everything in February, and this is what it looks like now. I need to go through and take some plants out, but again, because Nikki is coming to get everything, I kind of want to save as much greenery as I can so she can feed it to her rabbits. So what do we have in here? So we have carrots that could be seriously thinned out. But again, I was planting just to see what would happen. So there's a carrot. And then we have all sorts of Swiss chard, lots of Swiss chard. I love Swiss chard. And some, I think it's called corn mosh. It's a type of green, that these little teeny ones down here. And then I have onions, lots of greens, way too many peas. And what I need to do is just take out most of these peas. This is onions. This is basil. But you see what happens in a hotbed if you don't do enough like pulling out and trimming off, is what happens is that you end up with things that are kind of getting shaded out. They're getting shaded out and mildewed out. So if I want those tomatoes to survive, I need to pull these greens out. And I really wish I had a rabbit to feed them to. Let's see what else we have. I think most of what I put in here was peas. So yeah, kind of what I really want to do is just like start tearing it all out. But what I could do is I could do a little bit of pulling out and then put it into the keyhole part of the other garden. The other one works just fine. It just doesn't have the fertility. It doesn't have the heat. It just doesn't have the complete like ecosystem thing going like the hotbed does. This one was not planted. This one, it was ready to be planted when I left and then I forgot to plant it. Can you see me? Okay, so this one is sinking. It hit, wow, my hair. Oh, we have a pea. Did you see it? I wonder if there's more.
Start rustling around.
So, here's my carrot. I'm just going to put it on there to be composted. Really, all that a hotbed is just a really big compost bed that you put dirt on top of to plant into. So, it looks like Nikki came out and planted some of the comfrey into this bed, or did you?
I did not.
When you plant into a bed like this, what you're going to do is you're going to open it up and put in some soil, and maybe we'll show you how to do that here in a bit. But if you have a bed where you don't have enough soil, it's going to be too expensive, and you know you want to plant something that's going to sprawl, you come and move it aside, you put your soil in, and then you plant your transplant in here, and it kind of takes over the bed, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on topsoil because you know that it's going to be a huge plant. So this one is mostly leaves underneath, but then we put a whole bunch of wood on top because previously I had been weighting the leaves down with bags of leaves just to keep them from blowing away. Now I have wood on top, and as it rains, the leaves are decomposing already and sinking, which means I'm going to have to add some more leaves. And every time you build a new one, you have a new parameter that you're following. I've done it with tin on this side, I've done it with wood on the side, we've done fencing like you see here, and it turns out differently every time. So this whole thing is taking a familiar model and turning it into something even better than it has been before, hopefully. So I'm going to put it in and shake it around a little bit on top of the wood. Now the reason I didn't just pick it up and put it in was because it was going to be too heavy for me. Wet manure is heavy, but now it's not. So there is my chicken manure with my leaf mulch. And I'm not going to put any more leaves on top of it at this point because I don't have anything to hold them down. What I am instead going to do is put leaves in this one and then put something over the top. Okay, now I have a little bit of rabbit manure and I'm going to put it on top, but I'm going to leave the ladder on so that it again holds things down. If you're going to make compost or raised beds or anything like that, you do need a pitchfork, not just a rake. and you want the urine because it's what it's so high in nitrogen. Okay, so what's going to make all these beds start to sink and be what we want them to be is going to be Manure Tea. This way you don't have to have a huge amount of manure, you just have to have the starter and apply it regularly enough. So we're going to take this really urine soaked rabbit bedding, rabbit manure, and we're going to put water on it and let it sit, and then we're going to take that out, dilute it, and start pouring it over the beds. The wind will blow away the mulch if I don't put something on top to anchor it, so I'm taking little branches, and the bed will sink, and then we'll just put more mulch on top of the branches, so it works pretty well. They look pretty happy. That in the back is shadowy, and it's not a bad thing to have some shade when you're first transplanting things, so that I'm not upset about that. But here you have the basil, and they are looking just fine, and it's cold at night. It's still freezing at night, and you can see, see if I can show you. You can see they're alive. They're not flourishing as much as these ones that were coming in at night. This one got some frost on it a few days ago, and there's also a tomato in there. Back here we've got more basil, more tomatoes. In the back we've got snow. We're going to come in and set up some of these. These are just, I think they were 10 or 15 gauge wire. We bought it in a roll, and I just cut it to length. And I use these to hold plastic and frost cloth. We're thinking about it on this side. Over here, the onions are just fine. And then I have the bulb onions in the, and there we go. This is enough for me to wilt for tacos. And I have tied back the peas today. I have a lot of other things trying to go to seed. I do want to get some seed, but I'm kind of thinking I'd rather do it out in the main garden rather than in here, because once things go to seed they get really big and they start taking up a lot of sunlight and a lot of space. This one, I put the coconut core that had the chemical fertilizer in it on top of the rabbit manure. This one, I mixed the rabbit manure in. This one does not have rabbit manure in it. It has layers of goat bedding, wood chips, and wool. This is the latest one planted, and it looks fine for how old it is. We'll have to wait and see how things go with the wool and the rabbit, or the wool and the goat as opposed to the rabbit manure. But that's the difference between them. Rabbit manure mixed in without any chemical fertilizer. Chemical fertilizer with the rabbit manure underneath, I would doubt that any of the roots have actually reached the rabbit manure yet. I have watered this one with Miracle Grow since it already had the chemical fertilizer in it. I just wanted to see the difference. So rabbit manure, Miracle Grow. And this one we have yet to see.